If you've watched my car audio videos before, you know that I'm all about being as clean and precise and detailed as possible. Now, in custom car audio, we oftentimes have to install sound treatment materials behind the panels in order to eliminate vibrations and improve our sound. But one of the biggest problems I've had with these sound treatment materials is sometimes they can look really messy. When it comes to cutting these materials, it can be very difficult to get a nice clean cut, especially when it comes to cutting holes for things like bolt head clearance or for wires to pass through. In this video, I'm going to give you guys some tips on how we can improve the cleanliness of the cuts of the sound treatment material, and I'm going to show you an awesome tool that we can use to create perfect circle cuts. So before we get started here, a little bit of a disclaimer. I completely understand that what I'm about to show you in this video has little to no impact on the performance of our sound treatment materials. In all honesty, being messy with the installation of sound deadening and other sound treatment materials really doesn't have any sort of impact on the audio quality. But there are benefits to installing the materials in a clean manner. The first benefit is panel fitment. Many times between the different panels in a vehicle, there's really not a lot of clearance. So if we're messy or if we partially cover a mounting position or another alignment hole for a panel, we're going to have issues where once we go to put that panel back into the vehicle, it's going to kind of be bulging out a little bit. It might go in, but it's just not going to look the way it should. Other than that, it's all about being a perfectionist. When I take a panel out of a vehicle, I really want whatever's behind that panel to look like it came stock from the factory, to look like it was trimmed correctly, installed correctly, and everything to make sense. And that's what I'm hoping to show you guys here. So in a new build I am doing here on this Jeep Grand Cherokee, you guys recently saw where I added this amp rack beauty panel. And before I mounted it, I wanted to add some sound treatment materials. Unfortunately, this hole quality right here simply won't do. You guys did have some questions about this process though, so before we get to making the perfect holes, I do want to show you some other tips for getting much better results when cutting. So the first step to perfection here is I want to capture my shape. So what I've done is I've used some of this interior protection Tessa tape. I'll link this down in the video description. And just so you guys are aware, this is a little bit on the pricey side. This is really high quality tape that is actually more meant to protect interior panels while you're doing work, but I'll also list a more cost-effective alternative for when you're just using it to capture a shape like this. Now the reason for capturing the shape this way rather than applying the sound treatment materials and then cutting them is I don't want to make any cut marks on the paint inside the vehicle. It's also much more difficult to cut around. You don't want to accidentally cut, a piece of carpet or a piece of other material that you don't mean to. You don't want to accidentally cut a wire. So this makes that process a lot more effective because we can do all the cutting outside of the vehicle. I've applied the tape and now I'm going to use a marker in order to trace the exact line of what I want to copy. And I'm also going to make note of any circular locations for wire harnesses or bolts or anything like that. Now that I have all the marks made on that tape, I can roll out my sound treatment material. In this case, I'm using SoundSkin's Pro material, and I can then put my piece of tape with all the markings on top of it. Now, a first key here is you want to line up the factory edges with straight edges on your piece of tape if at all possible so that you don't have to bother cutting those edges. Now, another key to getting really good results is using a very sharp knife. In this case, I'm using one of these Olfa knives. I really like using these. Again, link down in the description. And one of the great things about this type of knife is you can buy replacement blades and it comes in a little box like this, which allows us to then break off and always have a nice new fresh tip. Yet another tip for great results is using something as a guide for your knife blade. In this case, I'm using a straight template. You could also use a straight piece of wood, and I'm cutting all of the straight cuts on this shape first. We can also use arc templates to accomplish cutting the curved parts of the piece. Ultimately, what it comes down to though is taking your time using a really good sharp blade and doing this outside the vehicle so you can much more carefully manipulate the blade and cut everything perfectly. Now I do have another thing I need to cut here. I need to cut this hole. So I originally got this idea for cutting more perfect holes from my show sponsor, SoundSkin's. They have a couple of pre-made kits, and on those kits, they have these perfectly cut holes. Now the material on those kits and the material that I'm using throughout my builds is this material here, the SoundSkins Pro material. This material is unique in that it combines 3 different layers of sound treatment in one. So this helps to reduce panel vibrations along with also stopping road noise and separating things like wiring harnesses from the surface to prevent vibrations. I've chosen to work with SoundSkins as a sponsor because I really believe in this material. It gets great results and it's really simple to apply. To check out the SoundSkins Pro and their other materials, link down in the video description. To make that hole perfect, I'm going to be using these guys. And these guys will also be listed at the link from where I got them down in the video description. What these are for is if you've ever seen somebody make something out of leather, let's say they're making holes for a leather belt, something like that, these are punches to make those perfect holes in that material. You can see that this kit I got here is a 12-piece kit. It's got this nice little carrying case, and it goes from 1/8 all the way up to 3/4 of an inch. This is actually going to be my first time using the kit, so let's see how this goes. I'm going to use this guy right here. As you can see, it has a stamp on it, so that is the 5/8. And what I've done is, I don't want to hurt my table here, even though this is my work table, it's a little scratched up anyway, but I put a piece of wood behind it here, and you just line it up and strike it with a hammer. Let's see how it goes. So we have a nice perfectly cut hole. Now again, this is my first time using these. I don't know if this piece of wood is actually the best backing board, but these weren't that expensive, so I'm not too worried about it. If they do get dull, I'm sure I can sharpen them up. But if you know, let me know what you think would be a better backing board. So this is all trimmed already. I just need to kind of separate it fully. So I'm gonna get it fully separated, remove that templating tape, and I'm gonna get this installed into the vehicle. As a quick side note, if you were a shop and doing something common like a door panel that you do often on this same model of vehicle, it would make sense to then take this shape and transfer it to a piece of cardboard or something like that that you could then cut out. So that way, every time you had to make a piece for a door panel, rather than having to apply the green tape again and trace everything, you would already have your template made. You would just lay it down on your piece and transfer it to it. To apply my new perfectly cut piece, I start with peeling away the backing paper and then applying this just like you would any other sound treatment material. I also repeated these steps with another piece that I was looking to cover within the vehicle, and here you can see I've cut out all the different holes, and now here it is installed into the vehicle. Now this is where it becomes clear how nice it is using those hole cutting stamps. Look how nice and perfect that looks. It leaves us a nice access point so that we can use these factory mounting positions that hold these different wires, harnesses, and things in place just like so. So obviously in this video, I cut through sound deadening type materials in order to make those perfect holes, but you could also use it on different acoustic foams and other things within an install. Don't forget that those tools, along with everything else, is listed down in the video description. You guys are always asking, where'd you get this tool? Where'd you get that tool? Guys, it's always down in the video description. I try to help you guys out by putting it down there. A special thanks to SoundSkins, along with John, Brian, Ali, Steve, Jerry, and Emmanuel, and the rest of the Patreon membership team. Big thanks to those guys for helping with the making of these videos. If you want to join the team, you can check out details to that down below. As always, my friends, thank you guys for watching.